it's about time I looked at this code and made it a little better. So have a look at what's going on here. I've got a number of things. Okay, so here is where I'm getting the HTML. Here, this is just me getting the products. Then for each of those products, I'm getting all the data. So I could actually split that quite easily up into some functions. So I'll define a function called, let's say, get homepage. And then I'll put all of that in here. And that is going to return the HTML. Then what I'll do is I'll put this in a function called get products. And then I'll return that. Actually, it's not really getting the products, is it? Yeah, it is getting the products. It's getting each row of that data. Okay, and it needs the HTML, so I'm going to pass that in as an argument. This might be a rough first approach, but we can change it later. So I've got 3 functions at the top, and then I can say, okay, this one is all about get product data, or let's say get all product data. So everything in here is about getting all the product data. And now I think about it, this is going to need to be called inside here, right, to get the products. And then for each of those products, I'm going to have the individual product data. So actually, I think this can all go in a function as well. So that's just get product data for one product. And I'm going to pass in product. So now I've got a number of functions, and for each of those products and products, I'm going to have to get the product data for that product. Now, already, with 2 minutes of effort, my code is looking a lot better. I can see that every different part of the code relates to one of these 5 different major things which the code needs to do. I'll probably break this one down as well to kind of, get the image data and stuff, but we'll save that for a second. So up here, I've got that page URL defined, and I want to use this down here as well. So it's used in 2 of the different functions. So the first thing I could do is I could just put that outside of a function, so it's accessible in both, right? But often when you see something being reused across functions, it's a strong indication that those functions are all related to the same concept. And what that probably means is that you should encapsulate all of them within the same class. So they're already encapsulated within the same file. Everything in here relates to getting the data from that web page. But I could also have a class, which I'll call product scraper. And I think all these methods could be methods of that class. They all relate to product scraping. What that's going to mean I need to change is that I need to change each of these methods so that they take in a self as the first argument. Now they're all under that one heading. So if I see my code using a method somewhere, it's going to say an instance of the product scraper is calling this method. So down here, that would look something like, well, I'm going to have to create an instance of the product scraper. And there, anytime that I use one of these functions, you're going to be able to see that they all relate to the scraper. So now I need to switch out some other things. So all of these methods are now methods of the class. And this page URL, I should probably set this as an attribute of the instance. So I'll say self.pageURL, and up here I'll say self.pageURL. So anytime you see self, just remember, just say this instance of the class. So this instance of the class's page URL attribute is equal to this. And down here, again, I'm still in the class, so I can still say self.pageURL. So that just gets this instance of the class's page URL. And then this, of course, is a method of the class as well. So now all of that looks valid. And down here, I've just initialized the scraper and called get all product data. So to improve this, I should also put it all inside an if name equals main block. And that's going to mean that this stuff will only run if the files run directly. So you might have other cases where you want to import this into a part of a different pipeline, part of a bigger pipeline. And in that case, you wouldn't want this stuff to run necessarily. This self.pageURL, this needs to be self.pageURL as well. Great. So now if I run that, that should all work. See if there's any issues. Get products missing one required positional argument HTML. So let's have a look at what's going on there. This function, when I call it, where do I call it? Over here, it requires the HTML. So I need to pass in some HTML there. And I've forgotten to call get the homepage. And there it is, it's working away. But you can see one issue there is that it's now duplicated all of the images because each of them is assigned a non-deterministic ID. So I can't determine in advance what ID is going to be generated for each product. So what would probably be an improvement is that I look at the nature of my website and I find a way to deterministically generate the ID of the product. That means that when I run it in the future, it's not going to re-scrape the same things. So in my case, looking at the HTML which I've printed up here, you can see that each product has an ID. And you might find something like that in your case as well. So perhaps instead of generating this non-deterministic ID, I would instead get the ID out of that TR. So that TR, I think that's each of our products, isn't it? So let's say I do product.find TR, get the attributes, and then select the ID. There's a bit of a gamble that that's going to work first time, but let's try it. Okay, none type has no object attributes. So this product already is my table rows, so I wonder if it just has the dot attributes already. There you go. So now I've saved each image as the ID, which the website specified. Now, every time I run that, the ID on the website stays the same. And so it doesn't re-scrape stuff that I've already got. Actually, it does re-scrape it, it just doesn't duplicate it. So what would be even better is that before collecting all the data and doing all that processing, I just check, hey, have I already got this product somewhere? Either in my image folder or in my data, which I should save elsewhere. So now that code's looking pretty good.